Hey leaders, what does it look like when a secondary school intentionally builds culture, character, and collaboration to support student success across academics, athletics, and well-being? Well, that's exactly what we're unpacking in today's conversation.
Are you a leader who is navigating the nuances of leading collaborative response in your school or district? Are you unsure of what collaborative response is? Are you looking to understand the critical role leadership plays when establishing and refining a collaborative response approach?
Collaborative response began as a grassroots approach to focus on the needs of students through a framework of collaboration. That approach has grown to a movement that is training leadership and education.
Through the Leading Collaborative Response podcast, Kurtis and I share our own experiences of leading collaborative response and lessons learned as we continue to learn and gain insight through the experiences of working alongside others. We also have the opportunity to engage in conversations with school and divisional leaders implementing the framework in their own organizations.
We know great leaders build great teams because that is what every child deserves. Subscribe to the Leading Collaborative Response podcast and join the thousands of schools seeing success for students through intentional and focused collaborative efforts. Before we jump into the episode, remember to join our mailing list at jlinsiders.com. Every Saturday, we send out an exclusive video only to our mailing list, along with other templates, resources, videos, and more. We also share upcoming events and opportunities you may not hear about anywhere else. Go to jlinsiders.com to become part of the JL Insider community. Welcome to another episode of Leading Collaborative Response. I'm Kurtis Houston, lead learner and co-founder of Jigsaw Learning. Lorna is away today working with the school, so she's not able to join us, but I am super happy to be joined by members of the admin team from Roland Michener Secondary School, Kris Herbert and Deanna Sloan. Kris brings over a decade of school experience across a wide range of settings, including elementary, secondary, outreach, and K-12 learning environments. Currently principal of Roland Michener Secondary School and Lakeside Outreach School, Kris is deeply committed to school improvement and grounded in the belief that all students can learn and succeed. Joining him is Deanna Sloan, who's been part of the Roland Michener community since 2008. Deanna has taught social studies and phys ed across grades 7 to 12 and has served in leadership roles as athletic director and vice principal over the past 5 years. With a strong background in athletic administration, Deanna believes deeply that character development is the foundation for meaningful school improvement. In this episode, we're going to explore how the leadership team at Roland Michener is fostering collaboration, strengthening culture, and creating the conditions for students and staff to thrive through their collaborative response efforts. So welcome, Kris and Deanna. So great to have you join.
Thanks, Kurtis. We're happy to be here.
Well, before we dig into some more information about your school and your location, we've been trying to offer those that are listening or viewing a first-minute freebie, something they could take away in the first minute of our conversation. So, what is something that you feel you could share with our listeners that could be an immediate takeaway to support their collaborative response work?
I think one of the biggest things, and Deanna and I have talked about this over the last few years of working together. Honestly, when it comes to things like collaborative response, processes, structures, all of those things, I think the one big word of advice I would give you is that you probably have things already happening in all schools. It doesn't matter if you've been doing this for a long time or if you're just getting started or you're just dabbling in little things here and there. You probably have some of this already, good things happening inside of your school. And I think the big thing there is like, take a look and see what's happening, and then just try it. Just try, take a little piece, and if we could offer any advice to anything, change takes time. Change is hard. The process of looking at things and polishing and honing a process or a structure that you may have. Be okay with that. Be okay with messy. We have a little line that we say a lot here at our school, which is, change is hard at first, messy in the middle, and beautiful at the end. And we like that quote, and we use that quote in our staff meetings and our PD days. And truly, honestly, that's what it is. But if I could recommend anything for advice, would be try something. It doesn't matter, one part of the process, see how it takes, take your time with it, let it settle in, don't give up on it too early, and then hone from there and polish with what you're doing. And it's amazing what you will see. Deanna and I have now been working together this is our 5th year together at this school. And it feels like it was a small amount of time. And we look back now and it feels like a quantum leap of what we've improved in when it comes to process and systems and structures in our building.
Awesome. Deanna, anything to add to that?
Kris is right. Like we started, the one piece that we started with was just establishing norms within our meetings, because we were already doing the meetings. We were already bringing our staff together to, to some level, work within that collaborative response type of a team. And the first thing we did was make sure we established norms across all of our meetings. So a little small piece. We kind of went from there. So I think he's right. You need to look at what you're already doing and see where you can start. It's just that starting point. And then, the process is so well laid out that it's easy to pick up once you start with one thing. So,
okay, well, we're going to come back to that starting off ethos and an idea here. But as we jump in, share with us a little bit about Roland Michener, where you're located, your student population, staff, just some basics to center our listeners and viewers on who are RMSS.
Yeah, we're a junior senior high school that's located in Slave Lake, Alberta, just about 3 hours north of Edmonton area. Our student population is around 650 students, and that's a pretty even split between junior high 7 to 9 and then 10, 11, 12. Most of our grade levels have approximately about 100 or just over 100 students in each one. We have a system set up here within our school that we have teachers and a complement of different staff with EAs, but we also have some specialty roles like wellness coaches, Indigenous education coach, career coaches. So they are a big part of the structure and how we do things. We'll talk probably a little bit later about like SSTMs and how we involve all those people into our building. But we are definitely a building that cares a ton about students. We care a ton about academic success and destination graduation and getting kids to graduate. And a big part of what we are is we are all Rams. We are the Roland Michener Rams, and we believe in our values of being respectful, accepting, motivated, and successful. And every day we promote and live those values.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that overview. And Kris, I want to go right back to you. You and I have known each other probably over a decade now, I would say. And I want you to reflect back, and then we're going to go to Deanna from the Roland Michener perspective. What initially drew you to the collaborative response work, and how did it kind of inform, like you said before, things that you were already engaging in within a previous school? And then I want to turn to, as you made that transition over to Roland Michener, what that looked like.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was fortunate to be the kind of a feeder school to this school, which was E.G. Wallstrom, and it's a 4-5-6 school. And basically, sorry, a little interruption. We got to know a little bit about collaborative response. The division was doing a little bit of work with it, but also we were just fascinated. I had a team there with a vice principal and a learning support teacher, and we actually took it on. We went to another division to kind of see what it was all about, and that's actually where I got to meet Kurtis. And right away we connected with it, and it just made sense. And what made sense was the structure of it. And what made sense for myself and that vice principal at the time, Audrey, is that we were doing a lot of good things. Where we being as efficient with our time as possible. And what we liked was the structure of collaborative response. how it had a kind of almost a neat way to tidy up some of the things that we were doing, but keep us organized, keep us on track, keep it kind of almost a nice flow to it. And then we actually jumped into a book study that we did together as a team at that school. And it's funny, I'll never forget this, and this just shows the personal side of Kurtis and Lorna. I had reached out to Kurtis to explain we were doing this book study, and I said, would you ever just come as a surprise guest as the final person of our book study, just to kind of pop in, and because it was online at the time, and we said, would you come pop in? And he joined us and did a Q&A, kind of like coffee talk with the people that were involved in the book study. And I think it was quite a memorable thing. And I think that right from there, we were off and running. We were currently looking at what our current reality was, and we were looking at how can we implement more and how to make us more efficient. So we're spending more time working with kids, working with data and evidence, but also working with families and getting to the very important things that we needed to do to make that school successful.
That's awesome, Kris. And I definitely remember popping in for that Q&A. It was awesome. Deanna, I want to flip to you. So Kris transitions from one of your feeder schools into your school. What were some of your first impressions when he started talking about, hey, how do we meet in this school? How do we go about supporting kids? And with that, what did you see? I mean, you mentioned the simple thing of just even starting with norms, but what were some of the initial wins that you started to see, but then challenges that emerged when starting to think about how you're collaboratively responding in your school?
I was only a year into admin when Kris came over, and our other VP was in his 5th year. So his perspective for our building, because both of us had been here for years at that point, like as a classroom teacher or as admin. So his perspective coming in, especially because it was his first take at high school, was, I think, really good for us, and it was a refreshing take. And because he was so coming off the success of the collaborative response within his previous school, his passion and his his need to move the building forward, I think ignited us a little bit to move our building kind of out of that status quo and move it to a place where we would see, just improvements all around, and a lot of our data, just attendance and academics, relationships. And he, I think, put that kind of spark there of just getting all of that going. I think some of our early successes, we had a pretty high staff turnover the first year we were all together. And I think part of our retention and part of that data over the last couple of years is because of what we've put in place with collaborative response. And I think teachers are seeing the growth there. And part of that initial success is definitely based upon their input. And I think that's a really big part with collaborative response, is making sure it's homegrown and, just hearing from your staff what their concerns are, where they think we can improve, what we can implement, hearing them talk about kids and how to support. That's a really big piece of that. And I think that's kind of the root of the success, is letting them have that voice and letting them, make those pieces of policies and those steps forward. And I do think it's really important it's homegrown, because a school could easily take ours and we can give it as an example, and it's really important for that staff input, for them to have that buy-in.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about there's common threads that exist through the foundational components of the work, but it can't look the same in every school. It does need to be contextualized. So before we get into the weeds of what does it look like in Roland Michener and how has it shifted over time, what did you see as some early challenges? Because I know leaders often get focused in on what are going to be some of my barriers or pitfalls that I can look for? And my advice is always, we're not going to avoid those, but being aware is really important. What did you see as some of those early challenges?
I think some of the early challenges was that we were doing good things. Like it's not
Yeah.
like we were talking about kids and we were talking about, okay, well, how do we support them? But what ended up happening is like I would just say the organization and structure, and this is why that norms was very important at the beginning. We could have it where we got stuck in a rabbit hole of one student. And we were going to talk about 5 students at this kind of team meeting, and didn't really have like a real structure to it. But this team meeting, and then we got oh, that student. Oh yeah, I got a story about that student. And so then we kind of like we veered back, and maybe we didn't come out walking out of that with solution-based kind of action next steps. There was another thing too, where like sometimes some people were engaged, some people weren't, some people were solution-based, some people were not. So the first thing we said was we need to get norms. We need to establish norms because we want to make sure everyone has a voice. We want to make sure it's productive conversation, keep us on task, make sure that we come prepared with us, like for example, an organizer ahead of time so we can get the most out of the time. And I would say that like that was probably limiting the buy-in to these, which we eventually labeled our collaborative team meetings as part of kind of that collaborative structures and processes. We formalize that more as we went along. But we understand, like as leaders, Deanna and myself and the vice principal that was with us at the time that Deanna had mentioned, time matters for the teachers. And if we're coming together for an hour and we're just complaining about one kid and then we all leave, like people are leaving that meeting feeling like their time wasn't honored, feeling that nothing productive came out of it. And really, was there any action steps taken away when we left, or did we all just feel like we got a chance to vent about 1 or 2 students and then we move on? So the norms established, us all looking in the same direction, I call it. And then we knew exactly what we needed to do. And then next after the norms was we started to formalize the actual structure of a collaborative team meeting. And we used the structure from collaborative response, and we used the organizers, and we didn't even necessarily get into the data and evidence at the beginning. And this is what I meant at the beginning with just start small. We just talked about what is the flow going to look like? Let's give some people, and we unpacked what are the roles in the meeting, because now people were they maybe sat there silently marking tests or something, but now they had a role because they had to be the ray of sunshine or the interrupter or the timekeeper. And it was amazing how that shifted from being what some could have said a waste of time, or some could have said not honoring their time, to more now impactful conversations, on task conversations, everyone having a voice or a part of the meeting. To then us coming up with solution base and talking about more kids and talking about more key areas and key issues, which then help us uncover even more to what we're doing in our day-to-day practices in the classroom. So that's kind of like where we got started. And that was the struggles. But then we turned each struggle every corner or every month into now what? Now what? Now what? And that was kind of like Deanna and I and Patrick at the time. That's kind of where we were. We're like, okay, now what? What layer do we put onto this now? And how do we keep enriching the conversations that are coming out of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump right into the weeds then. You've mentioned collaborative team meetings. You've mentioned SSTMs. We talk about 4 layers of team within a school. What does that look like at Roland Michener? And Deanna, I'll start with any one of those layers. Just kind of give us a little bit of nitty gritty of when, who, and how it started. Maybe start with the collaborative team meetings, because I believe that was kind of the first step into a much greater piece of work than just one meeting. We'll be right back to continue this episode. Are you looking to maximize the collaborative capacity of your school or district? Are you wanting to take your professional learning communities and multi-tiered system of support work to the next level? Have you started the work in collaborative response, but are looking to reignite or deepen your plans? We would love to have you join us at the 2026 Collaborative Response Retreat happening May 1st and 2nd in beautiful Lacombe, Alberta.
Following the 2 days, we will ensure that you walk away with a plan for introducing or strengthening collaborative response in your organization for the upcoming year. With a concentrated focus on breakout sessions, team planning, networking, and individualized support for your school, the Collaborative Response Retreat is an outstanding opportunity to grow your team's understanding and implementation of this powerful support and framework.
We are also planning some fun social time so you can relax and enjoy some activities as a team in our historic community of Lacombe in central Alberta. In addition, participants will gain access to an extensive repository of online resources to deepen their understanding and support ongoing implementation. Plan to join a growing network of educators dedicated to responding to the diverse needs of their learners. We've capped our attendance at 140 participants, so make sure to register early to secure your team spot. We're looking forward to seeing you in Lacombe in May. And now back to our conversation.
Yeah. We were already meeting as a staff to review, just students and issues within the building. So it definitely helped because we were facing a staff that was pretty put out by another meeting. It did help us to kind of label it and say, okay, this is the first step of this process that we're going to start kind of working through in the next few years and building through our staff. It definitely helped that Kris was there to talk about the successes he has already seen from it in another school. I think the success at that level was really due to the fact that we did honor their time. We were done at this time. We had other people in our building play that facilitator role to help build some leadership opportunities. We kind of split them up in subject areas, high school, junior high. We tried a couple of different things before we really kind of troubleshooted where the most success was. So like Kris said, it was about, okay, we did it this month. What was good? What was not? Okay, how are we going to kind of revamp? Halfway through the year, we moved to, as opposed to subject area, that junior, senior high split. There was definitely some growth through that first year. But I think the success of that allowed a good feeling by staff to move into the next layers. And it definitely helped that we only implemented that step in the first kind of school year. So, it was definitely a good starting point that we took time to kind of, as Kris would say, marinate with the staff and let it, kind of like take root and let them get used to that process, let them get used to the roles, the norms. And then it was easy to kind of pull into that next stage. We do this here, so now we're going to do it here.
Excellent. So in the building now, Deanna, what do the collaborative team meeting look like? Like, how do you group staff together, and essentially how often are they, or how are they happening?
So we do once a month, and we've evolved kind of into this like a CPM more, which we had tried right off the bat to kind of add that. And when
you say CPM, collaborative planning meeting?
Yeah. We kind of didn't follow our own rule, and we pushed it a little fast, and we didn't give it really enough time. We were excited for the success. So that was a lesson for us, and that just, implementing things too fast and moving too fast is really not helpful for our staff. So we took a step back from that in the second year, stayed with the team meetings, and then this year we moved more to that CPM style, which is the planning meeting. And it definitely is a step that makes sense for our building because we're really honing in on assessment right now. So our overall kind of PD goals and our school goals are moving more towards assessment. The CPM is helping in that we've They meet once a month. We've grouped them in subject area. And then their goal is to build common assessments for our building, which is great because it means we've kind of moved out of the realm of that behavior support, the attendance support, and we're actually getting to a stage where we can really focus on kids' academics now that we've weeded through kind of those outlying issues, which is a result of those CTMs and all our continuum of supports that we've put in. So
I'm really excited to get to the continuum conversation here because I always use Roland Michener's works as fantastic samples to be able to share. Kris, do you want to add on what are the other layers of team that have been established then within the school?
Well, I think like Deanna articulated it well, like it was a process, especially through the collaborative team meetings. I think what some of the big successes that we kept building off of too is that we were no longer just honed on one student. We started talking about key issues. Okay, so what is the key issue that's coming out of that? Instead of just that's a problem child, what are they displaying and what can we now, is there other kids that are showing this key issue? And then we found, because like Deanna mentioned, we had some changeover in staff over the first few years. We were building people's capacity, like their capacity to handle behavior, attendance issues, relationship issues, social emotional issues. And I think that really helped our staff be very aligned, use similar vocabulary. And then like Deanna talked about when we went to the collaborative planning meetings, it really helped us get focused inside of our disciplines, like the social studies department, the English department, and then they really got a chance to dive deep into data and talk about what do we need to do for assessment and continue to get better marks, better achievement, better success to kind of follow those values. One of the things that really helped us a lot was moving into the SSTM. So the SSTM, the school support team meeting, we were kind of already doing this at many different levels. So we had like our wellness team was meeting with the learning support teachers, and then the learning support teachers would come meet with the admin. The admin would talk to the career coaches at the high school level. And it was just one of those things where it was very broken up, disjointed, and you probably added up the hours would be 6 to 8 hours a week of meetings with all sorts of different departments, and everyone's kind of talking. And then maybe a kid got missed on one meeting conversation, but picked up on another. So we then found that, okay, this is the time for us and our CTMs with all of our staff. We were talking about key issues and then moving into how do we support the key issues and then taking action items to how do we support those kids with action, which was so important. And then there was like the kids, it was almost like out of the classroom. It's like that tier 3 level. They were bumping their heads. It's not to say that they're a tier 3 kid. Their needs were at a tier 3 level and needed a little bit of support outside of the classroom. And we were seeing more and more of those names come up. And instead of getting caught in the rabbit hole of just talking about that kid, we then said, okay, well, this is now a referral up to the SSTM. And what was beautiful about the SSTM, and is probably one of our biggest successes at this school, is that we were able to take a student. We were using our learning support teacher as kind of a gatekeeper to collect information through a referral process. So what would happen there is that we had a very simple template that we would use that the learning support teacher, because junior high kid could have 8 different teachers, could then go to those teachers and say, tell us what you've done. What have you done at the tier 2 level to support the kid inside of the classroom, maybe for their behavior, maybe for their academic success or their attendance, and what's working and what's not. And then all of that would be collected and brought to this SSTM where we meet every week for this. Every week we meet and it's 1 hour. So instead of 6 to 10 hours of meetings, we bring everybody together for 1 solid hour. Our admin assistants and everybody that's inside of our building knows that this meeting happens. Our teachers know that this meeting happens. So it's almost kind of like it's this like pocket of time, and it's very important. So we don't get interrupted very often unless there's an emergency, and that our staff knows that. But then, so what ends up happening there is we have everybody at the table. Admin, learning support teachers, career coach, everyone is there, and we're all talking about a student or a group of students. And I find from that allows us to really dive in deep to talk about tier 3 supports. And what's beautiful about that is, like, for example, if I'm facilitating, it's easy for me now to say, sounds like student A this is what's going on. Wellness, can you do this? Career coaches, can you do this? Vice principal, can you do this? Everyone walks out with, say, an action item tied to some kid in the conversation throughout, and we work as a total team. And it's like you disperse full of action for the next week, and then we come back, and it's like, how did this go? How did this go? That didn't work with you. Let's try the Indigenous education coach, or maybe let's go back to the teacher, learning support teacher, and work with them. When you do that, we just found now we were like, there was just so much action and impact happening. It was very productive. And we actually found that we were getting so much time back because we weren't sitting in 6 different meetings. Me meeting with just the career coaches, Deanna meeting just with the wellness coaches. The information flow was solid. Communication was a maximum. And now we can go to classrooms and get in there and supporting people and supporting kids and supporting teachers and working with them, right?
Well, and what's fascinating about this, Kris and Deanna, it goes back to what you said of nobody wants another meeting. Like, that's not a selling point for it. But if we can get introduce that collaborative team meeting and then get concise in all of our others, we're going to win time back substantially, which is what you're talking about, Kris. So we talked then about the case consult, the one student at a time. What does that look like in the school? And I'm super interested, through the course of these last 5 years, have you seen the number of one student at a time conversations start to decline just on the capacity that's been built in the school?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely think because the capacity is way up. I think things don't surface out of the classroom as frequently anymore. Like the referrals to the office have gone. Would you agree, Deanna? In the last 4 years, they've gone down a lot. Referrals to the office.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think with the case consults, this is more like this kid is really hitting the ceiling with a couple of their needs, and we got to start to look at a tier 4 level. So now in the case consult, what's beautiful about those is, like, we're going to talk about one kid, but the wellness coach doesn't need to be there. These 2 teachers need to be there. The parent needs to be there. And maybe the occupational therapist is going to come in because they've been doing a little bit of work with the coming in and doing classroom observations. So what's nice about those is we tailor them to what the conversation and what the meeting needs. And we make sure we get the biggest bang for our buck out of that time. Where, like, if, for example, the SSTM, we're not going to have tier 4 resources in those, or a parent in those, or potentially, you might invite a teacher here and there, but usually not. It's usually more around the tier 3 supports in the building. And then we disperse out of that. But a case consult would potentially have 6 of the teachers, or maybe the EA a part of that.
Yeah.
It gets very specific to the student and the language around what we're talking about.
Okay, so you've described each of those layers within the school and the evolution of that. I remember coming in early, and you had talked about, we've got these collaborative team meetings, we're starting to see some momentum, but it feels like there's certain students and key issues coming up on a consistent basis, and it feels like a lot of the issues are related primarily to attendance, which sometimes can be out of a teacher's locus of control. And then we started talking about, okay, now it's time to start layering the data. Can you talk a little bit about how your data and evidence has started to coincide or align with your collaborative structures and processes?
Yeah, it definitely, the data takes time. So it's one of those things where you can see that there are things moving in the right direction. And you want that right now. But it takes time. And I would say probably wasn't our second solid year of the collaborative team meetings that we really started to see, okay, this kid is popping up again at this time of year. What it like, or we notice at this point, when we're talking about this kid, he's on our SSTM for about 2 or 3 months. So it's finding the trends with students. It's also, as we were working through kids multiple times, realizing that as a staff, we really needed to start, working on our own toolboxes and how we can better prepare them to field at that kind of tier 1 and tier 2 level before it gets to our SSTM. So by the time we had gotten through a few of our SSTM meetings and started pulling some of that, either attendance data or the academic data or the behavior, realizing that like the first response was kind of to just send them up the chain. So that's when we went back to kind of our continuum of supports and, okay, what can we do to build our staff capacity here to address some of these things that are more surface level beginning stages before we get everybody else involved. So I just adding those layers, and I don't know if off the beginning that definitely shifted our mindset as an admin group because of the data we were pulling after kind of getting these meetings rolling, getting them a regular thing, and having enough of them to actually see the trends in kids and then in staff response too.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything to add, Kris?
No, I think the data focused us a bit too, because kind of like when we had worked with you, and I think Deanna, that's kind of like what she's saying, like it focused us in the sense of even our collaborative team meetings, instead of kind of getting caught on, well, quote unquote, the red academic performance. We were talking about kids that were in the yellow kind of pocket of 40 to 60%, and it was something that simple, just marks, like what percentage those kids were at, and then how would we address it from there? But it also allowed us to pull out kids that can sometimes get forgotten, the 90 plus kids. How are we challenging them, and how are we? So when we brought data and evidence into it, kind of like Deanna said, I think it just focused us. It allowed us to get, where do kids need to be? Where are their needs? And what do the conversations need to look like?
Absolutely.
So that helped a lot with that.
Okay, so we've teased the continuum of supports a few times here already. And one of the things that always stood out to me about Roland Michener is we talk about the framework with the 3 foundational components, but really what we're trying to do is create a way of thinking and organizing ourselves in the school so that when we say, hey, we've got behavioral issues coming, all right, how could we collaboratively respond? We have relationship issues that are happening. How could we collaboratively respond? Attendance. I mean, those are all 3 areas that you focused in on. So take us back and explain, how did your continuums of support start to inform your responses, but then also really turn attention back to what are we doing at tier 1, which is across all classrooms, and then tier 2, the things we're doing in some of our classrooms, some of the time with some of our students. We'll be right back to continue this episode.
With ongoing use of the continuum of supports, we recognize the importance of establishing common practices at Tier 1 that are consistent from classroom to classroom. This ensures that every child will have access to consistent, effective instructional practices across the whole school. Join us for the online workshop, 5 Considerations when Refining Tier 1 of Your Continuums of Support, part of our Supporting Collaborative Response series. In this workshop, I will share 5 ways to articulate common practices that establish the foundation for Tier 1 across the school. I'll also be sharing numerous resources, templates, and samples. Register today to learn more about this critical step in the continued development of your continuum of supports, integral within a school's collaborative response.
And now back to our conversation.
Yeah, I think building the continuum of supports, one, brought a very clear understanding of how do we support kids and the different needs. We also debunked that a kid is not just at a tier and that's where they stay. We said the kid's the kid, and they access the levels that they need, and they might go down, but they're still there. They're still in our classes. They still need tier 1. They still need tier 2. So like we had some really good early conversations, I feel. We started with relationships because we felt that like the school was doing well with relationships. There was definitely a lot of staff that would pride themselves on their relationships, but the strategies and the skills that they brought to develop those relationships. So we knew it would be an easy way to kind of get started. But we also knew that we had some staff that also struggled with that. And I think we can all learn from each other. That's kind of our continuum of supports process allows us to all grow together. And Deanna had mentioned earlier that like you can't just be stolen from somebody else. You need to
Yeah.
kind of you can get some ideas from somewhere else, but you then need to move through the process of it. And honestly, this is that time thing. To build like one continuum of supports, it can sometimes take almost a whole year to do it. Like there's an element if you do it step by step, you could do it quickly too. But if you do it step by step, you can then look at it, okay, what's working well, what's not working well type of thing. And for us, the way we do that is we develop and we talk about, okay, we're going to talk about relationships. So what are we doing in this building for relationships at the classroom level? And just dump out all of your strategies, put everything possible on the table. And at the time we were using low-tech sticky notes. And I think that relationship one, we had like, I don't know, it was like 250 sticky notes or more. And that felt good. The staff were like, "Yeah, look at us! Like we've got lots of things in our toolbox," and that felt really good. And then I think what was really nice about that is that we then started to classify. Okay, well, let's start to look at what would be at a tier one for all the kids all the time that you're using. Then what is tier two for some of the kids sometimes, and still within the classroom, because that was really important to understand that we're still inside the classroom. And this is you as the teachers and the support staff in those rooms that are using these strategies. But then what do we have at the tier three, tier four level? And I think what was really neat for us then is that we also did I thought it was a genius idea around this impact thing. And I mean, Kurtis, you were the one that gave the idea around this whole idea of like, what is the impact that strategy has? And getting our staff to actually rank them with like almost like a Likert scale. And so what we found then is like, it's not to say all strategies are good and all strategies have time and a place, but then it was like what surfaced was our 95% of our staff feel these three strategies are non-negotiable. Like they're for relationships, for behavior, for attendance. They're non-negotiable, that we must have them. And so then we would talk as a staff, okay, there's our tier one. That is our tier one right there. And because we all believe that these big three strategies are going to be something we need to have in all of our rooms for all the kids all the time. And what was really nice about that is because then it's not 400 different strategies that we're expecting you as admin to have. It's a staff believing that these are the big three, or these are the fantastic four, as we call them, for, say, behavior. So what then we did is we dove a little bit deeper into those, and we said, okay, so what does having clear routines and expectations for behavior continuum of supports, what does that look like? What does it look like? What does it not look like? And this was a chance for our staff to really get clear on this is what it's going to be for the future of Roland Michener. And then everything else after that, we classified inside of a big bubble of here's tier two for some of the kids, some of the times, and here's what you can now, this is your toolbox. And I will say that as we've developed them, so now we have one for relationships, behavior, attendance. We just recently, with our wellness coaches helping lead the way, built one for social emotional learning this past year. We now have these documents, and I know they're documents, but they're living because it gives us an opportunity at any time when we're talking about a kid, we say, okay, let's talk about what does that look, what does the key issue sound like? And you're hearing our staff say like, well, behavior, or maybe connection and relationships. And then we're able to pull that up and say, okay, well, what are we doing? What are we doing for this kid?
And it really does turn the attention back to our response, not well, there's nothing I can do until the kid
Yes.
does X.
Yes. And it doesn't have to be the principal, it doesn't have to be the vice principal. A learning support teacher, a wellness coach can say, hey, I'm working with the kid, but at the classroom level, because yes, they're meeting their needs at the tier 3 level with me, but at the classroom level, they still need support here and there. Maybe highlight 3 things that we're going to try next week that you think might work well. And that it's so powerful to be like, just pick 3 things or just pick 2 things you're going to try.
Yeah.
Like greeting them at the door in the morning and just listening to their 10-second story. And honestly, like now we have people talking continually about those things, but we also have people supporting each other as well. Hey, did you try? Hey, here's a suggestion. And when you think about that, like now, this is why we're seeing less office referrals. This is why we're seeing our attendance improve. This is why we're seeing our relationships inside of the building. We're having more connection than we've ever had before, which has an impact on all of that data.
Yeah. So this is awesome. And you've provided a couple of your continuums as samples that we use. I'll make sure to put them in the show notes for anyone that's listening or viewing. As we start to wrap up a little bit, I want to turn first to Deanna. And Deanna, I'd love for you to finish this statement for us. As a result of collaborative response, we have seen. How would you finish off that statement?
We have seen confidence grow in our staff and their ability to build relationships with kids, address concerns with kids. It's transferred into even them communicating with parents and with each other. So I think that's a big root in school success is your staff feeling confident, and it's definitely a result of collaborative response. I would also say it's almost inadvertently help our culture grow because it's reminded people why we're in our building, and that's for students and for kids and their success. And it keeps that conversation goal orientated to in a positive type of format, right? So we're constantly looking at a new way to help a kid, help support them, and it keeps those conversations fresh and ongoing to keep kids on our radar. So, and in the end, like that's what we're here for, right? Is for students.
Love it. Kris, same. Finish this statement of, as a result of collaborative response, we have seen.
I think the improved communication, I think the structure of what we do, I echo everything that Deanna has also said there as well. But I also think it's like, it's not just one more meeting. I feel like when we go into these meetings, SSTM, CTM, CPMs, it feels like, okay, yeah, we're going to do this for an hour. Yes, it's an hour of our time. But I know when I leave here, I'm leaving with some action. I'm leaving with a product. I'm leaving with an idea. I'm leaving feeling supported. It's not, I'm leaving feeling frustrated and I just lost an hour.
Yeah.
And so I think that like when you look at what we're doing right now, we have developed a lot of the things that Deanna also said, like where people feel confident, empowered to take things on, and our skills as educators have improved in many different ways because of the conversations we're having.
Love it. All right. As we wrap up, I'll just turn back. Any last words to finish off before we say thank you so much for your time?
I think for me, just I go back to circle right back to the very beginning in the opening. Just try it and just give it time. And yeah, I do use the word let it marinate for a bit and see what comes out of it and hone it. But just don't be scared to try things out. Don't be scared to look at what you currently are doing, and if even though it's status quo, it's okay to challenge that a bit. And it's okay. Change is definitely hard, and change is something you got to work through. But I think if you're transparent and honest with that with your staff, it's amazing where you can kind of move through things and have some amazing successes on the other end.
Awesome. And Deanna, we're going to hold this over Kris's head later. You get the last word.
That's how it always works, so that's okay. there's lots of things floating around education, and there's always kind of like that new fad. And I just think that the collaborative response model is a long-term solution for schools. And I think that it's rooted in conversations. And, we all know that, teachers, admin, anybody in your building working together is going to support kids. So it's definitely something that I think has a stronghold in a building and can show success years, even if you're no longer in the building. It helps establish a really solid foundation for a school. So it's worth starting, it's worth trying, and the resources with it and the support from you and your team is always, met with, easy accessibility, and you're never left floundering. So try it, reach out, and yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kris and Deanna. I really appreciate taking time for the conversation, and even more appreciate the amazing work that you're doing for your staff, your students, and your community. So wishing you all the best, and thanks once again for joining us for this conversation. So normally I have the chance to reflect on some insights with Lorna, but I will do my best on my own. Really always impressed with the great work that's happening at Roland Michener, and it's one thing to have it said in a podcast, but another to have it lived in the building. And I've seen with my own eyes them living the idea of it's okay to be messy, and it's okay to just start and then think about what's our next step, and constantly circling back to say, all right, from what we're doing, what's working, what would we adjust, and then what's our next small little step that we're going to take. You'll notice that the alignment to the foundational components and the languaging is so strong. Deanna and Kris, and Tara wasn't with us today, but all three from a leadership perspective, Patrick before that, have really dug in to the work and understood how everything connects. And if there's something I can leave you with, it was mentioned in the podcast by Deanna and Kris, that idea of let it marinate. Take time and understand that we are building culture through our collaborative response efforts, and it's that culture that is going to endure for how we collaboratively respond for students' needs. So as always, love to thank Kris and Deanna, the admin team at Roland Michener Secondary, for joining the podcast and sharing their expertise. Make sure you check out the notes, as I'll pop in some of their continuum of support samples, as well as some connection information if you'd like to be able to connect for a conversation. And as always, here's a couple requests. First, join or share our mailing list at jlinsiders.com to receive weekly content and resources that we know you'll find valuable. Second, like, share, review, or subscribe to help ensure someone else who needs to hear what we've discussed or to see have a greater chance to find it. As always, please reach out to questions@Jigsaw Learning if you have a future topic, future guest, or if you'd just like to connect. We'd love to hear from you. Wishing you all the best as you lead collaborative response in your own organization. And I'm sure Lorna would want you to know that we will see you soon.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. We'll see you on the next episode.